Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this panel, which is presented by Hot Drop. I want to get that right in there, right at the beginning. Hot Drop, amazing new creative marketing agency that just launched. Go check them out. Thank you for making this possible. So this panel will be all about the content and creating a unique brand in esports, how they work together, and I'm sure there'll be a few tangents in there as well. Instead of butchering introductions, I feel it would be better if everybody introduces themselves. So we'll start with yourself, Christy, then go Trisha, then Carl, then Jacob.
Hi, I'm Christy. I have done kind of marketing strategy in the background of gaming and esports for quite some time. And before that, I was managing major brands on social back in the early days. And now I'm the gaming director at IMC, but I'm also the managing director for Gamers.vote, which is an initiative to rally gamers to go out and vote this fall and register to vote.
Awesome. My name is Trisha, and I'm the CEO of FlyQuest, one of the founding partners of Riot Games League, or franchise league, League of Legends in North America. I have been in esports for over a decade, where I started as a streamer and a player in StarCraft, and I then transitioned into an interviewer and a host for major events. I moved on to Azubu TV, which was a global streaming platform, as their global director of esports, and I increased traffic to 12 million unique monthly viewers. And then I joined LA Valiant and Immortals as head of partnerships, and now I'm at FlyQuest as our CEO.
Hi, my name is Carl Kuhn. I work at JBM Sports. We are traditionally a sports marketing agency, and I head off the esports branch that we opened a couple of years ago, along with my team and colleagues. And we basically consult mostly non-endemic brands on what they can do in esports, and most particularly what they shouldn't do in esports.
Cool. I am Jakub Kristensen. I am CCO and founder of Astralis Group, the company behind the esports teams Astralis, Origin, and Future FC, respectively Counter-Strike, League of Legends, and FIFA. Before that, I had a company called Refresh Entertainment, which basically created what we're doing here, but also the tournament circuit called Blast Pro Series. And before that, I've been pretty much been doing everything you can do in esports for the last 15 years before that. Most prominently, I ran the company called Copenhagen Wolves back in the day.
There we go. And before we get into it, I just want everybody in the chat to wish Christy a happy birthday. It's her birthday today, so everybody has to do that right now. I want a wall of text. Everybody wishing her the best of days, because she's tuned it with us at the ESI Digital Summit, so show us some love there. And I've got the first kind of topic I want to discuss. I want to see if anyone wants to jump into this in particular. Just go for it. Is content as important as winning in esports when it comes to teams and organizations, or should it be competing first and winning first and then content secondary? Or is there a way you can kind of marry those? Whoever wants to jump in on that, whoever feels passionate about it, feel free.
I think you have to do both. I think winning helps everything, and that's just how sports goes, right? At the end of the day, like, what we do is we compete in sports, and people want to see competitions. But at the same time, you see teams like the Browns, an NFL team in football, who had a horrendous record for like 3 seasons in a row, 3 years if you guys don't watch football, and they're still, top 10 teams on social media, and their following and engagement, and that's really awesome. And I had actually the pleasure of meeting some of the marketing team at a Twitter summit. So I think it's important to give content that shows personality and the story behind your players, but more importantly, like, what your organization stands for. So at FlyQuest, we stand for showcasing greatness, and that's the belief that greatness already exists within everyone, and we want to help showcase that. And so I think marrying that, having content and standing for something, your why, and that's sexy, right? That's exciting for anyone to know the purpose and your true differentiator as a brand, but then also hopefully you can pair that with winning, because that's why people watch.
And Trisha, would you say that creating content and then like ensuring that you've got a solid brand is like more important than actually winning, right? So say you're winning everything, that's great, but like is being the winning team a brand on its own, and can that be sustainable? Or like you can always create content, right? No matter whether you're winning or losing, you can actually get some of the more compelling storylines to come out of not succeeding and being close to it. Would you agree with that?
I think that's a little bit of a loaded question. It's really hard to say like which one is more important. Honestly, I think you need both, because at the end of the day, if you can guarantee that you can win every single time, which no one can, that's impossible. But if you win every single time, you become the Yankees, right? And that is a winning brand. People expect something. But it's also not a great strategy to just say we're only going to win and that's all we stand for. The reason why FlyQuest has a vision and we focus so much on building brand equity, because at the end of the day, you can't always guarantee you win. And so even if we lose, we still stand for something, and we hope that our fans will still support, the things that we do. We do things for like our Go Green initiative. We did Tree Quest, all the things for the environment and saving the planet. We don't do this just because this is cool for like a brand. This is truly like what we believe in, right? And what we care about. And I think you need both. Like at the end of the day, it shows if you're there to stand for something and if you really believe it genuinely. So you get the fans who are there for, because you have a Go Green initiative, or because we have a floral jersey, wrong sleeve, sorry, floral jersey. And you need a lot of touch points, because fans, and not just esports, but just people in general, we like variety. Right? We like more than just League of Legends. We like more than just winning. And it's cool if your brand or a company that you stand for supports stuff that you also believe in. So I think, again, you need both. In an ideal world, I would love to win every single time, and I would love to have a lot of cool content. But for me, at least, what I can 100% control is the content that we release, because that's easy to schedule and so forth. As for winning, even though you do your best and you have a whole support team, that's not guaranteed. So at least for the business staff, we focus a lot on content, and for competitive, we trust our coaches and our GM to hopefully build us a winning team.
Very fair point. And when we're talking about winning consistently, I'd be remiss to not mention Astralis when it comes to CSGO majors. I mean, is it 3 in a row? Like that's pretty good.
3 in a row now.
Yeah. There you go. So you've kind of built a culture around winning these majors within a sense. It's like everyone's expecting it at this point, right? But like what you've done with Astralis in your home country is nothing short of amazing. So can you like, obviously esports is a global industry, but what you've done domestically is literally insane, as you were telling some stories before we got going with this. So can you go into that a little bit, and how you managed to make Astralis as mainstream as any football team in the country?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to touch a little bit on the question that you asked earlier, for me, the core of what we actually do is content. Astralis is competitive entertainment. If Astralis had won 3 majors, played in a basement somewhere that wasn't streamed, nobody would care. Like, the winning itself is not the product. The content is the product. The winning is just the catalyst of the product. So I think, the way that we've sort of built our brand is that we instantly recognize that in order to push this forward, we needed mainstream recognition. And when we say recognition, we don't necessarily mean that, a 60-year-old is going to turn on the TV and watch every single game of ours. But what we kind of use as a test is that when a 14-year-old asks his granddad just to buy him an Astralis jersey, that has to be as normal as him asking for a Manchester United jersey or a Chelsea jersey. And, we kind of looked into what are the values that we can actually, communicate to a mainstream audience and be proud of communicating. So we were very, very quickly into, sleep right, eat right, performance, health, physical, maintenance of these players. And I think that is how we broke into mainstream, because all of a sudden the mothers of the fans were like, okay, maybe it's actually not that bad that you want to be like these guys. We were very lucky early on that we were able to sign some pretty big commercial partnerships with brands like Audi, Jack and Jones, Microsoft, who could help us tell this story. But at the end of the day, we are also very lucky that Denmark is a very small country, and we have a little bit of a perplex because of that. So whenever we win something, we're just super happy, no matter what it is. We'll take it. We're very happy, about our national pride. So here in Denmark, we've managed to build Astralis into what's pretty much a mainstream product. when we play a final, for example, in the Road to Rio that we played not so long ago, you have almost as much, if not as much, people watching it on national TV here as is on ESL's, English stream. We have the Prime Minister visiting us. Last week, we were actually doing a physical workout with the Crown Prince of Denmark, teaching him how to, stay fit at home, etc. So it's become much bigger here than I ever had imagined when I kind of pitched someone the idea of Astralis the first time.
Okay, and Carl, when you introduced yourself, you mentioned bringing non-endemic brands into the industry, right? I can't imagine that's easy. Can you kind of walk us through the how you approach such a thing, because it has to be authentic to the audience, and esports fans typically like things done a certain way. So being authentic and ensuring that you have a solid game plan is obviously really important. So I'd love for you to just walk us through how you would do that.
Yeah, the way that we usually like to start is exactly like you said, with the fans and the community and the people who are actually going to be watching this. Because I mean, regardless of what type of brand you are and what kind of product you have to function in this new space. And like you just said, esports fans are particularly used to seeing things a certain way, seeing things done a certain way, being in a particular environment. Because I mean, being an esports fan is so much more personal, I think, than being a traditional football fan. And I mean the football that's played with your foot. Sorry about the American.
I was actually going to caveat it after Jacob started talking. I was like, I should say American football.
You should.
Okay, glad we cleared that up. And the thing is, I mean, esports is in such very large parts built by the community and built around the community. You have, for example, the platforms themselves already. If you think traditional sports comes from TV mostly, and where esports usually is consumed, and it's not just consumed, it's interactive. So as a brand, first of all, you have to ask yourself, everybody keeps talking about, we want the direct feedback from the community, we want to know how people think our stuff works. And then when the Twitch chat gets going, all of a sudden people like the quiet of a TV spot again. So you really need to roll with that. And I think you need to ask yourself whether you can actually add something to the space and who you want to be within the space. And of course, if you're a very old-fashioned brand, you can't go into esports and go, hi kids, that's going to be weird. And people are going to call you out for it because they know how to Google stuff, including your brand. So the way that we like to go about it is to suggest sort of reinterpreting your brand for this new space, seeing how you can communicate with these people, what you have to offer for them, and how you can add to their experience in particular. On the one hand, I think that's important to give them something fun, and on the other hand, I think what's also important and what some people tend to forget is that it needs to include something of your brand as well. You can't just stick your logo on something, or, for example, sometimes people get these segments and they think it's amazing, but technically the next event somebody else could be there instead of you. And I think it's really important, if you want to succeed as a brand in esports, that you need to become a part of the community and have your own stamp on certain things, and add your own formats or ideas to the whole thing. And that's really how we get started and go from there.
Okay, and Chris,
sorry, and one final thing that's a personal favorite of mine is you need to be interactive. You really need to react to stuff. You can't expect social media to work as a one-way channel. It won't. And you need to be quick, and a lot of things may go wrong, like the voice of the community can be pretty harsh, and you need to react quickly, but if you do it properly, they will love you again and even more than before. And I think that's really, really important to make use of that. Leave alone that it just makes sense and it's kind of the right thing to do.
Very good point. And Christy, right, I know you're being very honest this panel, right? But I just want to ask simply, right, if esports fans are expecting a certain thing all the time, does that necessarily mean it's the right thing for them? Are there any missed opportunities in content when it comes to esports at the moment? I imagine we're not doing things perfectly right now.
So one, I think it's about going forward, right? Because what we've created, what everyone has created, is pretty special and unique, but it's in growth phase, right? Like, this is starting to get momentum. So really, what do we do next going forward? We've already tackled a little bit. The community is really important here, right? That's a really big difference between a brand going after you as an esports organization or team versus an influencer one-off, hey, this is a tried-true method for a big brand to use that model because it works for them, and you want them to take a chance on you, right? And so we have an opportunity here to create incredible content that makes it a really unique experience for both the community and the brand to participate in that journey, right? And one of the, I mean, you're talking about what matters more earlier, and I wanted to comment on it, is that content are winning, right? And the truth is, something happens in esports, it doesn't happen in traditional sports, or at least not as much, really rare circumstance, right? As a Seahawks fan, American football, sorry, again. I, as a Seahawks fan, after losing a game against the Patriots, I'm not switching teams, right? Like I feel that loss, it's gone. There is always a risk, right? Here where there is players being shuffled around, you know, of why a community might switch out. And so it's more important than ever to have that content and that community built up. So when that happens, they're invested in you as a team, and that's not going to shift, right? The focus. You don't typically follow a player across football, right? So you stay with your team, you're sad about it for a bit, and then you move on. But one of the things that I really want to see happening going forward for like unique content is I want us to use platforms properly, right? And this is also like with courtesy and care for everybody involved in this. People are working with skeleton teams. You know, we have, everyone has different money requirement, what they can spend, right? So here we are with Instagram content that doesn't need to be the same thing that I saw on YouTube. And you're trying to build your channels, right? You're trying to move forward. You need to start creating custom content made for these channels that are not repeating and rehashing the same of what you've already seen, right? And there's a lot of really cool ways that you can probably start to integrate there. Whether you're trying to build up your Instagram account for a bit, you can create really custom content that only could be seen there. You channel your group there, you incentivize them to go and grow that, right? And then you move on to the next channel you want to do. As a brand, I would be super excited to know that your hardcore fan base follows you wherever you go across social. And if I wanted to do something clever on Reddit, or I wanted to try to do something on Instagram Stories Live, like that's something we could talk about. But like that's just getting better at that, and not to I'll pick on a big bad wolf as one goes comparatively, and it's not esports, it's, you know, publisher side. They have the means to do this, right? The ability to create custom content on a channel like Instagram, for example, right? But what you see, and you see the community get really upset about it, is they'll take like the gameplay video that everyone's been waiting for, and maybe this person hasn't gotten out of bed yet, right? And they haven't seen the YouTube link, but then they open Instagram because they want to see the girl that they're, you know, interested in, and they're following the stories, and all of a sudden here is this video that's been snipped into 15-second cuts, and it's like not even the full video because it's been sized appropriately. Like, you're mad, right? Like, that's an opportunity to create unique content that only exists there, that kind of funnels that through. I want to see esports teams do that.
Okay, and I've got another question to add onto that then, right? So say we don't have the means to be amazing across several channels, but we have the means to be amazing on one channel and then just distribute. Like, what do we do? Do we double down on the platform we can be great on? So say Twitter, just for the sake of it, right? So we could be really great on Twitter and then ignore the rest, or we can be pretty good on Twitter and pretty good on Instagram, pretty good on YouTube. Like, how do you tackle that?
Well, this goes back to content being one of the most important parts of this space, right? Because this extends beyond just for your community. This is for your brand partnerships. This is to continue to pull money and support to your organization, right? So like, I almost want to say, like, in a perfect world, you hit the pause button and you figure out how to support both your content creator side and your partnership team, right? So who is that person that exists in your space that's building strategies that make sense for brands? Like, let's say, for example, you really wanted, I don't know, Delta, but you have no relationship with anybody who could bring that kind of money into your organization, but you know that your organization is a perfect fit for this because that's all you fly. It's your team's experience. You can imagine the story of when they go home to visit their family after a long run tournament. Like, you know how you tell that story from a content perspective, but that begins with the initial conversation from the partnership end, right? And so I think, no matter when you're saying the channels, and like, it matters. Like, you have to focus on it because this is the story that you want to tell. And that story begins way back on knocking on these doors going, this is the story. And the truth is, like, you're risky, right? So the story here is you want Delta, and this is the unique experience. And you're this person who's going to make this decision and choose it. You're giving them an ace in a hole that's going to get them the promotion they want, right? for that conversation. Like that, why am I going to pivot on a strategy that works and has continued to work with me, you know, and gets me my next bonus, you know, move on to the next brand, but like you're risky. But if you tell me a great story and I saw this wild, amazing deck of why your audience was amazing and we're going to grow together, that's something I would probably have a second meeting about. Does that make sense? So like, that's great that you're great on Twitter, but like you need to rethink how you exist on all platforms in an equal level, because that's your offering.
That makes sense. That makes complete sense. Thank you. You are way smarter than me. And Trisha, I hope this is a reasonable thing to say. Before you took over as CEO of FlyQuest, it lacked a little bit of identity, I think, or it didn't stand out as much as it does now. I'll put it in a more reasonable way, because I'm definitely not trying to offend. Like, how did you approach?
You won't offend me. We can be honest.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think it stood out really, right? like to be completely honest, compared to where it is now, especially. So how did you approach the change, and how did you identify the path you were going to go down? I mean, no one else is doing what you're doing, so it makes sense. But how do you even get to that space?
Yeah, for sure. So my background before esports, like I said, I did streaming, casting, hosting, a lot of the talent side, and then I moved on to the business side. And for my fans at that time, were like, wow, that's really odd. But the truth is I used to use my PTO time to do esports, because back then couldn't really make a living on doing that, but it was something I genuinely love. So I take vacation time to do my dream job, if you will. So my background is implementing CRM and ERP solutions and sales. So I've been doing sales, and this will show my age, but like 15 years plus. And one thing I found in esports is no one's really telling like a real story. Everyone says that, and like we're all saying, in which we all agree, content's super important in esports. But a few things that I think are roadblocks in esports until like Overwatch League with geolocation is that in traditional sports, you know, they kind of have a monopoly, if you will, right? There's only one team in Wisconsin, for example. So you're probably going to like, we're going to go back to NFL, American football, but the Packers, you'll probably like the Bucks for if you have NBA, if you watch that, because that is your team, that is your hometown. And just like Jakub is saying, like they have Denmark. If you're a Denmark fan, or if you're from Denmark, you're probably going to support Astralis. Of course, they have other fans outside of there, but like just generally. And that is a luxury I think that traditional sports have that at least esports teams don't have. So looking at that, at being one of the 10 teams in LCS, right? How do teams differentiate themselves? And normally, at least from what I saw, is that teams are differentiating themselves through their product, really, because like what it is they do, right? So what are their numbers on social media and following, at least when they're pitching to different sponsors, right? How do their metrics pan out? What game titles they compete in? What are their competitive achievements? And again, these are like product, and product differentiation, of course, is super important. I'm not discrediting that at all. But at the end of the day, I was looking at the space, and you know, I've been on different sides where I was a sponsor and vice versa. And all the decks started to look the same. Like everyone is pitching kind of the same story. And so what I wanted to say is like, let's bring what is important to us, our why, because that is what is true to you, right? That is your North Star. That's what gives you direction, your purpose. And for me, the whole reason why I got into esports is because I wanted to make people happy. That was really why I streamed. My dad passed of cancer when I was younger, and like that was one thing that helped me a lot is through gaming and like building a community and having like a resource. So I wanted to make sure my intention of esports was like getting in and to make it a place of like gratitude, if you will. And so I started with my stream, moved on to a streaming platform, and the whole intention was like, let's have the opportunity to like reach other influencers and other streamers, and maybe I can help them see like we can make something positive out of this. Let's use esports as our platform to reach people globally, right? Because you have such an opportunity. And so with that, with my promotion as CEO this year, I had the privilege of executing my vision. And one thing that's really important to me right now is the planet, like the whole environment. I think that's just something that we can really showcase and talk about because it affects everyone. So what I did first was just launch our Go Green initiative, and that is the belief that everyone, all of us included, FlyQuest wants to facilitate ways for everyone to be involved and help save the world, if you will. And so we did that by really owning it, because FlyQuest, as you said previously, we didn't own that. Like FlyQuest, people didn't know what we stood for. They just knew that we're an LCS team. And the truth is, since I joined FlyQuest in January 2018, the first thing we did was create our vision of Showcase Greatness. And so this year was just about owning that and saying, hey, we're doing the Go Green initiative because it lives under our vision, which is Showcase Greatness. And that is the belief that greatness already exists within everyone. And so with that North Star, we built our initiative, Go Green. And then underneath that, we built several campaigns. And the campaign that we launched first was Tree Quest. And that landed us planting 10,000 trees for the entire split. We incorporated our wins to trees, right? So 1 kill equals 1 tree. 1 Drake was 10 trees planted, and every win that we had was 100 trees planted. And luckily, we got 2nd place in playoffs, so we had a long stretch. But that is all to say that you need to build a strategy and your why again, and I'll keep going back to your vision. Your vision should never change. And I think that is how you build brand equity. And I don't think any team has done that until us, just to say. Like, no one has said that this is what we stand for and this will never change. And at the end of the day, this is what I want you to remember us by, not our 2nd place or whatever the winning is. The reason why I said both content and winning matters, because winning helps and there's no way around that, right? It's very hard to get people to care if you're not at least a contender, that you don't even have a chance to make the playoffs, or you don't even have a chance to make to the Super Bowl one day or something like that. So yeah, hopefully that was a long answer, but it's something I'm very passionate about, as you can see. And I just want to say, like, you need to have a vision, and that is that's your true differentiator, not your products, right? Your products help complement that.
Awesome. And one thing I'm passionate about is Hot Drop, who are thankfully presenting this panel right here. And in honor of keeping things in time, I've got one more question and then we're going to have to wrap it up. Thank you again, Hot Drop. We love you. I love you personally. Heather, you are the best. Right, Jakub. So I feel we've touched on the importance of content and the importance of winning and the ways to approach content in a way that's actually going to work for your organization, your brand, your company, whatever it may be. How has Astralis standing out in such the way it does, like, helped commercially in terms of like partners and non-endemic people wanting to get involved? Like you announced Luna yesterday, and I'm sure there's going to be 10 more partnership announcements before the end of the year at this rate. So, like, how important has it been for you to have a brand that sticks, and is known on a national level very well?
I mean, it's meant the world to us, and I think as Christy said, when people see us, it's never been a question about the numbers. The numbers make sense, the audience makes sense. It's the risk. I was speaking to a very senior marketeer at one of the very big global brands, and he said, if I spend 2 million euros on skiing and it goes wrong, it is what it is. I spent 200,000 euros on esport and it goes wrong, I'm getting fired. Because why would you spend money on that? So for us, not only is Astralis such a mainstream brand, the second is also, like, we built our values in a way that companies actually want to stand next to us. They want to talk about, health with the youth. They want to talk about nutrition. They want to talk about sleep. They want to talk about the professionalization of esports. But further, also, our parent company recently went public as the first esports team, I think, in the world. There might be someone else, but then I'll probably miss them. But we're building credibility, and I think having partners like the logo behind me really helps with that. And I think we've also done that through content, because again, like Christy said, you have to consider who's the audience that you're reaching on the different channels. So the way that we broke through mainstream was not by winning Counter-Strike games and tweeting about it. The way that we broke through mainstream is we made a full series of documentary that we sold to one of the mainstream TV channels here in Denmark. And the law that we kind of laid down for how we did it was, we don't want to see any Counter-Strike. We don't care about Counter-Strike. We care about the people who play Counter-Strike. Tell that story. Forget the Counter-Strike. And the only time you want to show it is actually sitting in an arena in a audience seat with a camera, like, pointing to the stage. Because if I show, an in-game footage of a Counter-Strike game, if you don't know what it is, you're not going to see that there's 10,000 people watching it in an arena. You're just going to think, oh, this guy's playing at home. That's cool. So we built this whole series. It ended up with us winning the major in Atlanta. And that was what broke through. Like, we went, I actually remember standing backstage in Atlanta, and I was talking to Dupree, one of the players. And he said, yeah, it's great, but nobody's going to care at home. And then we really started running it. And then 5 minutes later, it was breaking news on national TV. We went to the mayor's office and had pancakes, which is usually only for people who win an Olympic medal or a gold medal in the European Championships or similar. So we're really, really conscious about the different layers of the audience that we're talking to, and where do we talk to each of them. Because I'm not going to talk to a 14-year-old's mother on Twitter. I'll hit her somewhere else, and I'll hit her with a message somewhere else that's appropriate for her. So, we've really been conscious about building it, but we've also reached a point now where, most people know who we are, but more importantly, people want to align with our values, which means that we're less of a risk, because they're not only aligning us because we're winning, but because we're doing content about who we are and what we do, and they want to be a part of that.
Awesome stuff. And in spirit of keeping things timely, I believe there's a break after this. We're going to have to end it here. People say this a lot on the end of panels, but I genuinely mean it. There are about 5,000 more hours we could spend on this, and I wish we had more time, but it is what it is. We've got to go. Thank you once again to Hot Drop. I'm just going to put it in again because I love Hot Drop. If you love Hot Drop, go for the Hot Drop. And again, happy birthday to Christy. I want that in the chat once again. Let's show some love. Thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the Digital Summit. To everyone who's watching from the comfort of their home in their slippers and pajamas. Thank you all very much. Cheers.